Dystopia warning, obviously, every day, all day, 24/7, 365, 52 weeks of the year. And I'm just doing some thinking out loud really, because I've been compiling some notes on the far right, doing a bit of research. I think it's interesting, and if you don't think it's interesting, you can just, can't you? Now, what it broadly relates to is, the obvious agitators that we have. People with an enormous amount of influence that are supported by, like the tech bruvs, far-right channels, etc. People like Tommy Robinson, aka Stephen Yaxley. I thought I'd do a little experiment, really. I told people on my platforms last night about the really important Hope Not Hate documentary, Undercover Exposing the Far Right. Now, they're very brave to infiltrate such a thick, violent subsection of society. I'll stop calling them thick when they write your and your properly. England for the English. Really? Okay, well, you might want to start by understanding what f***ing grammar is. Anyway, I thought I'd do this as like a little test on Twitter. I'm not calling it X just because that Space Karen decided that he wanted to make Twitter sound like, I don't know, a low-budget strip club. Doesn't mean I have to play along, does it? Anyway, almost instantly, as soon as the words had left my fingers and been transported out onto the app, in they came. In came the bots, the obvious bots. They'll throw insults at you, they will throw, all kinds of like randomly generated slurs at you. Poorly spelt, incomprehensible, bollocks. And then you have all the kind of like the Daves, and before you go, oh, you're being snobby using the name Dave, but both my granddads and my brother are called Dave. So in short, almost instantly on that app alone, my comments became what can only be described as flypaper for cunts. Tommy 10 Names isn't a fan of Hope Not Hate, because they expose him for what he really is. In fact, in those Telegram groups during the kind of Southport riot era, there were people actually calling for the unalivement of one of the main people at Hope Not Hate. Yeah, calling for his head. Now, after 4 years on the internet as a woman, it really does genuinely not even register with me anymore. You get daily threats, you get daily, people picking apart your anyway, that's irrelevant here, right? Because it's not real. What people need to realise is it's not real. Don't engage with these people. Some of them are like people with a couple of hundred followers and a blue tick because they think Daddy Elon is going to give them more reach to talk balls. But what I found interesting was the sheer volume of it, and also the kind of things that they say. Of course, they all defend that muppet, don't they? Their supreme leader is a short pork scratching. And there's nothing you can say to reason with them, no, because they're just desperate for him to touch it. There's no point saying, wake up to yourself, you mugs. You're being conned. Your racism is only paying for his lavish lifestyle whilst he's screwing the country over a barrel for foreign dictators. And when you suggest that, people are like, oh, like, for example, Putin. They're like, oh, Putin doesn't care about money or trade or whatever. No, of course he doesn't. He's richer than Elon Musk. What people like him and other exceedingly rich dictators want is chaos. They want countries weak, isolated, full of disorder, divided, powerless, like Britain after Brexit, which is precisely why, and I'm going to go into this in more detail tomorrow, he interfered, not him, he's a useless idiot. No, but Putin interfered in the Moldova EU election, right? They had a referendum about joining the EU. Very slim margin. They won it. But there's been talk of people being told that they would be paid money for voting to not join the EU. So I'm looking into this at the moment, but it's looking a little bit like, Putin might have done an Elon. Almost as if they're all f***ing connected, isn't it? There's been a couple of big news stories in the last couple of days. One of them was that Peter Lynch, one of the rioters that tried to, burn alive asylum seekers at a hotel during the summer of race riots, is said to have unalived himself in prison. This obviously set off all of the mad lads, didn't it? Let's make one thing extremely clear here. He deserved to be in prison. In fact, I think the people that tried to do that to the people in the asylum hotels should have been tried under terrorism laws. Because not only did the act itself obviously incite terror, but it was ideologically focused. It was political. They had an aim. They don't like immigration because they've read the Daily Mail and they've believed the bollocks. Implemented as policy by our previous government and then spread via their mates in the media. I reserve my empathy for people that are the victims of racism, not the people that perpetrate it. But of course, the opportunistic hobbit decided to get involved, didn't he? As a way to promote himself, obviously. You're very much not Peter Lynch because you're not in prison yet. The only people responsible for the death of Peter Lynch are himself and those that radicalised him. Now, all the same people were popping off about Chris Kaba. Now, they're talking about how the new information has come out that Chris Kaba was a part of a gang, right? So was Peter Lynch. It could be argued that both were radicalised by their circumstances. Chris, a young lad in London, is quite likely to fall into a gang. It can happen. A racist in Rotherham is very likely to be a Tommy Robinson supporter. In no way am I comparing the two like for like, merely making a point that people react to their circumstances. But yet this lot will revere Peter Lynch as some kind of a hero, whilst hurling racist abuse at the families that feel massively wronged by the institution of the police, which is understandable because they're institutionally racist. I'd have been shocked if the police officer had been found guilty, frankly. And then you have Lucy Connolly, the wife of a Conservative councillor who put out hideous posts around the time of the riots. She was jailed for 31 months. Brilliant. But she's a white woman, so everyone was downplaying her involvement in it, obviously. Because they love to bang on about two-tier policing, don't they? Ignoring, as I said, the aforementioned institutional racism that sees black people treated like the perpetrator on the stand, even if they're a victim. And I don't need to reiterate my points on this and the fact that doing that to a woman is essentially legal at this point. That's how rare the convictions are. That is two-tier. Only white men really getting justice is two-tier. But some of these people, if they got any thicker, they would set. There's absolutely no point explaining it to them because not only do facts not really go in, they're not interested in the facts. They'll also call, the current government the elite, while supporting people like Farage and Tice. Tice in particular comes from an enormous amount of family wealth. People like Farage and Tice and Robinson will market themselves as patriots, whilst absolutely screwing our country for the benefit of our enemies. So I think I'm going to start making some content which focuses on how to spot disinformation, how to fact check, and I'm preaching to the choir here, but this is something that it might be useful for you to, share with the idiots in your life. They probably won't listen, but it's worth a go. Next up, the questions that Nigel Farage needs to answer about Russia. I think you'll enjoy it. As if I get to record it and I don't, get indignitased, i.e. kicked out of a hotel window, or asphyxia wank off a door handle.